Attorney General Pam Bondi just got put on the spot, and her answer left more questions than it solved. Representative Deborah Ross demanded to know one simple thing: who ordered Ghislaine Maxwell's move from a Florida facility to a minimum security Club Fed in Texas? Bondi agreed Maxwell deserves no special treatment, then couldn't or wouldn't say who signed off on the transfer. It's a controversy that's been building for months, tied to closed-door meetings with Deputy AG Todd Blanche and Maxwell's own push for clemency. Stick around, because this exchange exposes just how far the Justice Department will go to dodge a straight answer. A quick note: I pulled this from recent reporting on the actual House Judiciary Committee hearing, not from a video link. You didn't attach one, so I wasn't able to review footage directly. Let me know if you want the tone adjusted, more punchy, tabloid versus more measured, or if you have a specific clip you'd like me to pull additional details from.
Believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas, which she, as a sex offender, would normally be ineligible for. At this new facility, as the ranking member talked about, and by the way, it's nicknamed Club Fed, we've heard reports that she's been afforded special privileges: puppy time, private workouts, personal mail, secretarial services. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve special treatment and privileges in prison? Yes or no?
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And
Thank you.
Let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well, I
did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or no.
She was not transferred to a lower
Mr. Chairman,
level.
please stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. One rule she needs to understand here.
And I'm glad that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things.
Questions surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell's reported transfer to a minimum security prison have quickly become a focal point in the broader public conversation about accountability, transparency, and the federal prison system. When a high-profile inmate is reportedly moved to a different facility, attention often shifts from the individual case to the decision-making process behind the transfer itself.
They see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency from Donald Trump. It's just crazy to consider that she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration. But that begs the question: who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why, but you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, you should be talking about Irina Zarutska.
I have a couple of
died on a subway.
Right, and I absolutely...
You don't talk about that.
I have been talking about it and actually helping with these issues. But we're going to move back to you.
In this situation, one of the central questions being raised is straightforward. Who authorized the reported move, and under what established procedures was that decision made? Those questions matter because federal inmate classifications and transfers are generally governed by administrative policies that consider security needs, institutional capacity, medical factors, legal requirements, and other operational considerations. Without official documentation or public explanations, speculation can easily outpace verified information.
To every single question in that committee hearing, and her lawyer dangled the offer of clemency. Should Donald Trump pardon or commute her sentence? Should she be released from prison, yes or no? You said you hope she dies there, so I'm hoping the answer is no.
I already answered that question.
Good. I'm very glad. I really like this bipartisan agreement about
when
what
it
should
agrees
happen
with
with
you,
her.
but you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You don't want to talk about
I talk about
murdered
her all
by
the
a
time,
violent crime
but
offender
I am not
in
here
your
to
jurisdiction.
testify before Congress. You are. That is your job today.
You are
That's what you're getting paid
obsessed
for.
with attack.
So I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly. That's why you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You couldn't properly identify her relative.
I absolutely
It's embarrassing.
have been, and her family, by the way, appreciates all of the condolences, all of the help, everything that our law enforcement in North Carolina has been doing to help her family. Her family feels well treated. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article by former Attorney General William P. Barr entitled, "Why Pam Bondi Did."
A House Judiciary Committee hearing produced one of the sharpest exchanges yet in the ongoing Epstein-Maxwell saga, and it centers on a single question that Attorney General Pam Bondi could not or would not answer directly. Representative Deborah Ross pressed Bondi on why Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted child sex trafficker serving a 20-year sentence, was quietly moved from a low-security federal facility in Florida to a minimum-security prison camp in Bryan, Texas, a transfer that took place shortly after Maxwell sat for 2 days of interviews with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. When Ross asked point-blank whether a convicted sex offender deserves special treatment or privileges behind bars, Bondi agreed that she does not. Yet when pushed to explain who authorized the move, the Attorney General claimed she was unaware Maxwell had even been transferred to a lower security setting at all. That claim collapsed almost immediately under scrutiny, since Bureau of Prisons operations fall squarely under the Department of Justice's authority, and reporting has since made clear that Maxwell's new accommodations include dormitory-style housing, minimal fencing, and access to off-site work programs, a stark departure from the conditions of her prior facility. What makes this moment land so hard isn't just the transfer itself, it's the visible discomfort in Bondi's answers and the timeline that surrounds them. Maxwell's relocation didn't happen in a vacuum. It followed a closed-door meeting with Trump's own former personal attorney, now serving as Deputy Attorney General, at a time when Maxwell has been publicly signaling she would testify before Congress in exchange for clemency, and has yet to implicate the president in any wrongdoing. That sequence of events, meeting first, transfer second, is the kind of detail that doesn't need embellishment to raise eyebrows. It speaks for itself. And when the nation's top law enforcement official can't or won't give a straight answer about who signed off on moving one of the most notorious convicted traffickers in recent memory into a facility nicknamed for its comparatively cushy conditions, the silence becomes its own kind of answer. Bondi's attempt to pivot during the hearing, reportedly telling lawmakers Maxwell would hopefully die in prison while sidestepping the actual question of who approved the transfer, is a familiar deflection tactic, but it doesn't hold up well under a format built around yes or no accountability. Deputy Attorney General Blanche has since defended the move publicly, attributing it to unspecified threats against Maxwell's safety and insisting the Bureau of Prisons made the call independently. That explanation might satisfy some, but it raises its own follow-up questions that so far remain unanswered. What specific threats justified moving a high-profile convicted trafficker into looser custody rather than simply increasing protective measures within her existing facility? And why did the timing align so closely with her cooperation talks rather than with any documented security incident? From a purely analytical standpoint, this story sits at the intersection of two things the public has grown increasingly distrustful of: opaque decision-making inside federal agencies and the perception that proximity to power buys leniency. Whether or not there was any explicit quid pro quo, the optics alone do real damage, especially for an administration that has already faced sustained criticism over its handling of the broader Epstein files and its reluctance to release them in full despite a standing congressional subpoena. Bondi didn't need to admit wrongdoing to make this look bad. She simply needed to not have a clear answer, and she didn't. In moments like these, the absence of a straightforward explanation tends to get filled in by public suspicion, and that suspicion is rarely kind. At the end of the day, this isn't really a story about prison logistics, it's a story about trust, and trust is exactly what's eroding here. When the Attorney General of the United States can't tell Congress who approved moving one of the most infamous convicted child traffickers in modern history to easier confinement, that's not a bureaucratic footnote. That's a credibility problem sitting at the highest levels of federal law enforcement. My take is simple. If the transfer was justified, there should be a name, a memo, and a clear chain of accountability behind it, and the fact that none of that was offered in a public hearing tells you almost everything you need to know. Until someone in this administration is willing to answer the who and the why with something more substantial than a shrug, the public is right to keep asking. And frankly, right to keep being skeptical.